आला रे आला IPL आला
Okay, so Raunak, it's time now for us to talk about Sunrisers Hyderabad. It's another year for them where expectations will be sky high once again. Last year, probably, they had a hot and cold kind of a season, and there were questions over Warner's captaincy at one point of time, and people were some people were of the opinion that Kane Williamson should be captaining the side. So first of all, what are your first thoughts with the new selections they made at the auction table this year?
Yeah, I mean, they went into this auction with pretty much a whole squad ready. Like Mumbai Indians, they didn't really need to do anything. No player that they actually bought at the auction is one that is a sure shot for their 11, right? So that goes to show that they already had a nice, solid bunch of first team choices in place. I think they did a remarkable job last year to get to the playoffs,
Yeah.
especially given the amount of injury concerns that they had. They lost a player like Bhuvneshwar Kumar early. I mean, how many franchises will be able to cope with their frontline Indian seamer being ruled out? I mean, imagine Bumrah getting ruled out for Mumbai, or any frontline seamer for his respective side, and Sunrisers still coped because that's the quality of the squad they have. They do all their homework on the auction tables, and I'm not gonna. This is going to be a really strong team in this IPL. I'm thrilled. They'd be very happy to be playing back in Indian conditions. Their bowlers seem to have, a liking for these conditions more than the UAE, because they don't have the express pace sort of bowlers, which is where they were found wanting. So really strong team. Good chance they could even make the top four. They're the kind of team that they could win the IPL and it wouldn't really surprise you, because they've done it before and they have a lot of those players.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for the Sunrisers Hyderabad. And I don't see any trouble with David Warner's captaincy at all. He rarely has bad years as a batsman or as a captain. He had a few tough selection calls to make because of injury last year. And again, if a couple of if they can find someone to just bat well in that middle order, an Indian batsman, they keep trying. I mean, they're hoping for Abdul Samad to be the finisher. They tried Vijay Shankar and Abhishek Sharma. Priyam Garg couldn't do it last year. So I'd like for someone to take that opportunity, because otherwise this is a really good team.
Yeah, the one thing which really kind of is confusing is, see, last year when Mitch Marsh got injured, they got Jason Holder, okay, like for like replacement. Now this year again, Mitchell Marsh has pulled out and they have signed Jason Roy when there's already a plethora of top order batsmen. Especially there's no slot in the top three if you play all Bairstow, Warner, and Williamson together. So did that signing kind of surprise you as well?
It did. I think it also was a bit about availability. I'm not sure if Jason Roy is still hanging around in India, whether he's gone back to the UK. But I know that it's easier for him to come back from London than it would be to get an Australia right now.
Yeah.
The travel situation is quite complicated. So that could have been one issue. And I mean, they don't need it. Honestly, they don't really need him. Warner and Bairstow. The only thing I could think of is if there is an injury to a David Warner, then a combination of Bairstow and Roy, they're so familiar. I mean, I can't think of anything else. Otherwise, for me, Roy, unless something remarkable happens, is not going to play. And I would actually not play Bairstow either, even though he's coming out of great form, just for the balance of this team. As I look through it, I just think Jason Holder did a phenomenal job for them last year. He's a really smart T20 cricketer. There's a good chance that they would play him this season in the first. They'll start with him and eventually may go to somebody else, because the pitches will not be as helpful as they were in the UAE for a bowler like Jason Holder. So there's a chance that they will start with Holder and eventually realize maybe he's not the answer. And then they could consider bringing in one of Bairstow or Roy. But for the start of the season, I would start with Wriddhiman Saha as the opener, because that was a real impact move last year. So Warner and Saha at the top, Manish Pandey 3, Kane Williamson in that sort of middle order role to steer, steer the side either to a chase or give them a bit of a push. I thought he did a great job. So I would start with Williamson. They're also playing on a few tricky surfaces. If you look at Sunrisers, they're going to start off in Chennai. They play some games in Delhi. So you might need a player like Williamson in that team. They could play anybody between Vijay Shankar and Abhishek Sharma. That's entirely on them. The spin bowling order, Abhishek is a left-hander, so I would give him the nod ahead of Vijay Shankar, but they could go either way on that. Abdul Samad, I think, should be given a long run of games, and let's see if he can turn into that Yusuf Pathan kind of player that they had when they were successful. Jason Holder, like I said, with starts, that's your number 7. Rashid Khan at 8. Bhuvneshwar Kumar at 9. So you got plenty of batting. And Natarajan walks into this team now high on confidence after being capped for India after the last IPL. And Sandeep Sharma, who's just been a wonderful servant of IPL cricket. Whichever side he's played for, he's always put in a shift. And Sunrisers tend to get the best out of him. So happy to go Sandeep Sharma ahead of a Khaleel Ahmed or a Siddharth Kaul, and they've got those options as well. So, very strong team and good chance that they'll be making the playoffs.
So just quickly on that, I think it will be really difficult for them to keep a very informed Bairstow out of the 11 because he created havoc in the ODI series, and Kane Williamson hasn't played recently. He sat out of the Bangladesh series, if I'm not wrong. Now, do you see any space for Kedar Jadhav in there? Because if they've got somebody like him experienced down the order.
Yeah, 100%. Look, there's a position there which is very much open for anybody who wants to take it, right? And that is that position which is either to Vijay Shankar, Abhishek Sharma, or even a Kedar Jadhav could come in. The Sunrisers have a lot of bowling options in that team. They don't necessarily need, somebody like that they don't necessarily need that guy to be a bowler as much as someone who can bat. Their issue has been someone who can give them that push at the end. Kedar Jadhav was a smart buy for this team. They're not dependent on him, but at the same time, he's an experienced player. Players like Samad, Abhishek Sharma are still young. So if they don't click, then you might as well go to the experienced player of Kedar Jadhav. And who knows, maybe a different franchise will just work well for Kedar. I don't think he's still, done with his cricket, and he can do a job in T20. He can also add you that bowling option if need be. So absolutely, a smart signing by Sunrisers. I don't think they'll start with Kedar, but don't rule out that, especially if the pitches start slowing and batting becomes a little more challenging, that someone like Kedar may be a better bet than somebody like Abdul Samad, who's a bit of a hit and miss. So let's see how that goes.
A big season for Manish Pandey. Has to answer a few questions.
No, I don't think so, because I think he's always done well for Sunrisers Hyderabad in particular. When he bats at 3, he's a different player for them, and that's where he should bat, in my opinion.
No, I mean for his place in the Indian team probably.
Well, the unfortunate reality of Manish Pandey is that he hasn't done a lot wrong and he still finds himself out of the team. So I think it's a big season for a lot of players that want to be part of the T20 setup, the fringe players as we call them, whether that's likes of Rahane and Ashwin who are trying to make comebacks into the white ball team. Shikhar Dhawan is not in favour as the T20 opener, you'd think now, after the kind of series we've seen against England. So Manish Pandey is just one among many players that would want to make a case. We're hearing now that the ICC is allowing up to 30 players in a World Cup probable squad because of the COVID restrictions. So who knows? Maybe there's room for him as well.
Yeah, and the 3 Afghan players don't see Rashid, Nabi, and Mujib playing all together for sure, but it's tough for somebody like a Nabi or Mujib who will have to sit out. They are such good T20 specialist bowlers. So probably do you think this is the last season where all 3 of them are in the same team, and next year they'll go back into some other teams?
I mean, Mujib was picked up late in the auction, and I know that Tom Moody is back with them, and I know Tom's thinking, well, he's a big fan of Mujib and has used him differently. Mujib needs to be used with the new ball. That was not something we saw with Kings 11 Punjab. So I think it's a smart signing, because even Jason Holder's place, like I said, is open depending on what kind of player they need there. If if the pitches get slower, Nabi can come in and do a job as a spin bowling all-rounder. If they get secure with their batting, they can bring in maybe Kedar Jadhav if they want to strengthen the batting, and then play Mujib in place of Jason Holder. Rashid Khan is easily capable of batting a position higher. So Rashid and Mujib could play with Mujib taking the new ball and Rashid bowling in the middle. So if pitches turn, there's a very good chance you may see at least 2 out of the 3 Afghan players playing. We all know Mohammad Nabi is a highly skillful player, so he can easily come in at any point and gives you something with bat too. So I don't think it'll be a miracle if 3 of them play, because I don't see that happen. But it'll be wonderful. If it is to happen, I think it'll be terrific for Afghan cricket if 3 Afghanistan players play in the same IPL 11. That's unlikely, but I could certainly see a case for 2 playing as the tournament gets deeper.
Any apparent weakness you see? Maybe that late middle order hitting?
It's just that. That's the only thing. If you are going to go with Williamson, you're mainly going with Williamson because you get a little dependability, especially if you're chasing. You don't want Warner and Bairstow to get out early if you played Warner and Bairstow at the top. So I want Ridhiman Saha to do well for them. I think it'll be good if he can have a longish impact over a season rather than just 1 or 2 games. And I think he's still a player that, again, like we've seen, finds a way to be effective in T20. Terrific attitude to have in the setup. So if Saha does well, that really helps them because they can play around with the overseas option. If Saha starts poorly, then they'll have no choice but to bring in Bairstow.
Yeah.
They may very well start with Bairstow, but I think again that will give them the same issue that they had last time. That I don't think they can play Williamson as well because then Rashid Khan takes his spot. Jason Holder is that all-rounder is an important position. Whether you go Jason Holder, whether you go Mohammad Nabi. So I think the balance of the team would be better off if Saha opens. If he doesn't open, maybe that uncertainty could be a weakness. And of course, the middle order where you need a couple of guys to really put their hand up and claim a spot.
I just feel they might start with Bairstow, Warner, Williamson and Rashid because in the middle order there's also Priyam Garg we didn't talk about. Last season he had a couple.
Again, that's another player who didn't take his opportunities. So he had 1 or 2 and eventually found his way even out of the reckoning. So this could go either way.
Yeah, even Shahbaz Nadeem as a matter of fact. But okay, so your prediction, I'm sure you definitely see them in the top 4, right?
Yeah, I always a team to back for the top 4. Just a very, very strong team, well led, and have great reserves if injuries come up. And Rashid Khan is and remains one of the best T20 players in the world. So you can't, and so too is David Warner. Even if he had a lean series at home, the IPL brings out the best of Warner. He's never had a bad IPL. So when you've got 2 world-class players, hard to bet against them making the top 4.
Yeah, kind of. I can see a few headaches for them next auction. Who to retain, who not to retain, probably because CSK might have eyes on Kane Williamson if they release him for a future captain.